The fraud had been going on for 3 years before anyone noticed. And the only reason it was finally discovered was because of a spreadsheet error so small it almost wasn't worth looking at. This is the story of how a company nearly lost everything, and how one junior accountant refused to let a small number go unexplained. The company was a mid-sized recruitment firm based in Edinburgh. Around 60 employees, strong reputation, profitable. Founded 15 years earlier by two partners. A woman named Helen who ran operations, and a man named Richard who led the commercial side. They'd built it together from nothing. Helen trusted Richard completely. That trust, it turned out, was the vulnerability. Richard had started small. An expense here, a supplier payment there, amounts below the threshold that triggered automatic review. He had access to the accounts. He understood the audit process. He knew exactly how much he could take without it showing. Over 3 years, he'd redirected approximately £230,000 through a series of shell companies, all registered to people close to him, all providing vague services that were difficult to interrogate from the outside. It unravelled because of Priya. Priya was 26, 2 years into her first accountancy role. She was reconciling supplier payments one evening and noticed an invoice that didn't quite match the contract on file. The discrepancy was £412. A rounding error, maybe. A system glitch. She flagged it to her manager. Her manager flagged it to the external auditors. The auditors pulled on the thread. What came out over the next 8 weeks was methodical and devastating. Each shell company was traced. Each payment was linked. Richard's involvement was documented at every stage. His attempts to explain the discrepancies away, errors, legitimate subcontracting arrangements, misclassified costs, fell apart against the forensic paper trail. Richard resigned before he could be dismissed. He claimed it had been a misunderstanding. His solicitor sent one letter and then went quiet. Helen pursued a civil claim and reported to the police simultaneously. The civil case recovered $190,000 of the $230,000 taken. The criminal case resulted in a conviction for fraud by abuse of position. Richard received a 2-year custodial sentence. The company survived. Helen rebuilt the financial controls from the ground up. She brought in an independent financial director. She restructured the audit process. Priya, the junior accountant who had flagged the £400 discrepancy, was promoted twice in the following 18 months. Helen later said in an interview that the lesson she'd taken from everything was not to stop trusting people. Because trust is what builds a business. But to make sure your systems don't require you to trust blindly. That good financial controls aren't a sign of suspicion. They're a sign of respect for what you've built. The truth is that fraud usually isn't caught by grand investigations or lucky discoveries. It's caught by people who care enough to ask why something small doesn't add up. Subscribe to Karma's Verdict for a new story every week. Leave a comment. Have you ever noticed something small that turned out to be much bigger?